Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're plunging into something really interesting. Chancellor Rachel Reeves recently called the UK an oasis of stability, in this post-Brexit, post-pandemic world we're in. So our mission here for you, our listener, is to really unpack what that means. Is there evidence? And what are the broader implications for the UK's future?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a significant statement at a really crucial time. I'm ready to get into it.
Okay, great. So to kick us off, what exactly did Chancellor Reeves say? And maybe just as important, where did she say it? What was the context?
Right. So she used that specific phrase, oasis of stability, at a Financial Times bond investor conference. And what's really fascinating here, I think, is the strategic angle. It's clearly a very deliberate effort. I mean, think about it. It's about rebranding the UK after, several years of quite a bit of uncertainty, politically and economically. The aim seems pretty clear. Attract that foreign investment, reassure the global markets, basically say, look, Britain is stable. It's a reliable place to put your money.
Okay. That makes sense. It's definitely about signaling confidence then. But, words are one thing. Let's talk numbers. What actual economic indicators or plans is she pointing to kind of back this up?
Well, she's highlighted a couple of key things. First, there's this stated aim to get national spending and tax revenue balanced by 2029-30. And this is a big, but the fiscal headroom is incredibly tight. That's the wiggle room the government has before breaking its own borrowing rules. It's very, very narrow. So any unexpected shock, even just slightly missing growth targets, could really throw a wrench in the works. She also talked up the 113 billion in capital expenditure over this parliament. And that's not just day-to-day stuff. It's long-term investment. Think health, defense, energy security.
Right, those big infrastructure type things.
Exactly. And if you look at the bigger picture, well, domestically, the reactions are, shall we say, mixed. Supporters like the focus on long-term investment. Critics, though, they immediately point to the increased borrowing needed and worry about, well, future tax hikes to pay for it all. For the public, I think, seeing is believing. Faith in this whole oasis idea really hinges on tangible progress, like are NHS waiting times actually coming down?
That tight fiscal headroom really does sound like walking a tightrope, doesn't it? So, given those domestic pressures and hopes, how does this oasis of stability idea play out internationally, especially thinking about the EU and the US?
Yeah, internationally, everyone's watching closely. Reeves has actually been quite explicit. She said improving business ties with the EU is, and I quote, arguably even more important than the relationship with the U.S. Now, that feels like a significant shift, doesn't it, towards a more pragmatic, maybe cooperative stance with the EU, trying to smooth out some of those post-Brexit trade bumps. With the U.S., the tone seems a bit more cautious. There's an emphasis on not compromising U.K. standards, especially on sensitive things like, say, food safety in any trade talks.
Okay, here's where I think it gets really interesting and potentially quite tricky. What are the risks involved in trying to balance these two major relationships, the EU and the US?
Oh, absolutely. That's the core challenge, isn't it? The biggest risk, undoubtedly, is getting caught in the middle when EU and U.S. interests don't align, which, let's face it, happens quite often. You could have a situation, for example, where a potential UK-US trade deal requires compromises on maybe environmental standards or
Yeah.
digital rules that clash directly with where the EU is going. Or maybe the US wants certain access for its companies that conflicts with the UK, trying to align regulations more closely with the EU. It requires incredibly careful navigation. Almost like acrobatics. You need to keep both sides happy, or at least not actively unhappy, without undermining your position with the other. It's a constant balancing act.
Yeah, a delicate balancing act indeed. So it's not just about the policy, but how it lands with the public too. How are people in Britain actually responding to this narrative, this idea of an oasis of stability? Are they buying it?
Well, from what we can gather, public opinion seems uh, cautiously optimistic, is maybe the best way to put it. But there's definitely a strong undercurrent of skepticism. And you can't blame people, really, given some past promises that, well, didn't quite pan out. Delivery is everything here. For the public, it really boils down to seeing real improvements, not just hearing the rhetoric. So what should we, and you, the listener, watch for to see if this oasis claim holds water? Well, look at the hard data. Economic growth rates, are they picking up? Is investment actually flowing in? And then the visible stuff are public services like the NHS improving? What happens in those trade negotiations? And crucially, can the government manage the finances without bringing in another round of really harsh austerity? It's about whether this stability translates into, a more secure life for ordinary people.
It definitely sounds like a claim that's going to be tested against reality pretty quickly. Thank you. That was really illuminating.
My pleasure. Happy to discuss it.
And to you, our listener, thanks so much for joining us on this deep dive. As you think about this idea of the UK as an oasis of stability, here's maybe a final thought for you to consider. In a world that's constantly shifting, with so many global challenges, how does any nation really define what stability means? And how does it actually sustain it? And perhaps just as importantly, what role does perception, both from the outside and from its own citizens, play in making that stability real? Something to mull over. We'll see you next time.